Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Our Old Farmhouse. Today we're taking a comprehensive review of our Heyneedle, also known as Bellevue, also known as Harbor Freight greenhouse. Now this has been a comprehensive review that I've been promising for a while. We've had this greenhouse since the beginning of September, and I've really wanted to give it an opportunity to see how things worked out, to make some modifications on it before I came to you guys with a full review. If you haven't already, we have made several videos in the past where we've kind of shown off different elements of the greenhouse. So I do recommend that you do check out our full video listing here on YouTube if you are interested in a little bit more of the setup instructions. Now this is a 6 foot by 8 foot kind of mid-range prefab greenhouse. I did order this greenhouse from Walmart.com, and with tax and free shipping, the total did come to $392.19. Now, I would never pay that much for a prefab greenhouse, especially one that I wasn't able to see firsthand. And fortunately enough, we had been saving up some reward points with one of the credit cards that we use, and we were able to get this greenhouse for really, I think it was like $26 by the time that we were done with it. So I do strongly recommend that if you have the option to save points on a card, you save your points and you cash them in for things that you wouldn't necessarily purchase without having an incentive like that. Now I'm going to go over some of the information on the greenhouse. While I do that, I'm going to show you guys a walk around here. Alright guys, while you are enjoying the walk around, I do want to go over just a little bit of the basic information on this greenhouse. As I said before, it is a 6 foot by 8 foot greenhouse. I told you 3 brand names on it: Heyneedle, Harbor Freight, and it's also known as Bellevue. When I had ordered this through Walmart.com, it was ordered as a Bellevue greenhouse, and when it had arrived, all the boxes had Heyneedle stamped all over it, and there was only a handful of boxes, but they had Heyneedle stamped everywhere on it. And after I had gotten this opened up, I had actually found out that it's the same exact greenhouse that's sold through Harbor Freight. I mean, piece by piece, everything is 100% the same. The only difference is this greenhouse did come with some interior shelves, which from my understanding, the Harbor Freight one does not come with. Now, I did order this greenhouse. It was a freight delivery, and I was afraid that it was probably going to take a month or two for it to arrive. We kind of ordered it late in the season, and like I said, I wanted it to be up for a little bit before we made our review. And fortunately for us, it did only take 5 days for it to arrive. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with a walk around of the exterior of the greenhouse. We're going to start on the left side if you were facing the door. Going around in this direction, you can see that there are 4 panels on the top and 4 panels on the bottom. These are roughly 2 feet wide. I'm not quite sure how tall they are. I do want to say they're about 4 foot, but don't quote me on that. Looking around here on the side, we have, looking back towards the front, a kind of little triangular frame up here that is part of the door. With the 4 panels here, they do rest into these little divots right here, and then they do use these metal clips right here to snap into place. Now, I did go through with my kids, and we put a heavy, and I mean seriously heavy, amount of caulking around each panel because there was no way that those panels were going to stay in on their own, and that was one of the reviews that I had read on this greenhouse. Now here on this side too, you can see that there is a little eavesdrop that goes across the side to collect water and debris, and I will be completely honest with you guys, I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. I thought there was no way that that was going to catch anything, and you can already see that it has caught quite a bit of leaves, and it has stopped a lot of water from washing away things that were underneath it. So like I said, I didn't think it was going to work. I thought about putting some potted plants up here in the spring, but I was worried with heavier rain if that was going to ruin them below or wash the soil away, and I really do think that that is going to work. Alright, well you guys are going to be able to see throughout the majority of this video that there is a common factor, and that is a lot of these pieces don't fit together super well. And you can see up here on this panel here on the side that it overlaps quite a bit. And then up here, it's not quite fitting in just right. And I played around with this for several hours. And I had someone that posted on one of our original videos when we were working on this saying that the base must not be square. And they're absolutely right, it's not, because it doesn't matter if I make the base square, then the roof is so off center, the panels won't even fit into it. And if I get that square, then it's not anywhere square with the ground, and the side lower panels don't fit in either. So I had to play around with it. Vivian helped out quite a bit, as did Amelia. One of Vivian's friends came over as well, and we had to get this midpoint as square as possible, and then from there the bottom and the upper panels fit in fairly well. And again, that's a great reason to make sure that you are going through and caulking these windows in. Moving on to the back of the greenhouse, this was an area that we started to experience our first issue with, and that was when it came to these upper three panels. Now, the bottom three panels, they snapped in just like the side panels, again, using these weird clips, which a lot of people complained about online, but honestly, after I figured out how to use them, and it did take a few minutes, they weren't too much of an issue. The issue that I ran into, though, is these panels up here and these panels down here on the upper section have nothing to clip into. Now, these metal bars, these crossbars in here, they have no kind of lip or anything to connect onto. It's actually this piece right here that does. And for some reason, I only received one. I'm missing that sides, this sides, and then the two the two triangles on the front. Now, the directions are very, very lacking when it comes to putting this greenhouse together. And in fact, this was the last step that it showed. So I had actually already got the panels in and got them caulked. So I am going to get some instruction grade adhesive, and I am going to come back through and touch this up. But I did want to leave it undone for you guys to see, because to me, I think that that's something that should have been addressed a little bit earlier in the maybe 3 pages of directions that came with this greenhouse. All right, so now walking back around front, we can see the right side here. Really no major differences from the left side, except for that this side does have a port window up here. And this is where I ran into the second issue. There is nothing that's keeping this port window latched. So that was something that I read quite a few of the reviews. There is supposed to be a small nipple piece that goes on the inside of this, which is supposed to allow this door to catch. But the thing that I kept reading was that it's still allowed to blow up a little bit at a time. About an inch, inch and a half, and a lot of people had said that they had felt that the wind had caught that area and ripped the window off, or that was the reason why the window got ripped off. Looking at the panel underneath it, same exact issue as the panels that were in the back and the panels that are in the front. There is absolutely nothing here keeping this in. So I did leave this undone for right now, but I am going to have to put a strip across there, probably just a little strip of wood to kind of hold that in place. You can see here lots of caulking. Caulking's not the best. I'm not great at it, and my kids actually did most of this for us. And even though there is a lot of caulking on here, I do believe that we are going to need a little bit more in some spots. You can also see here on the side that there is a lot of overhang, especially on the smaller panel, which you would have thought would have been the easiest to fit into place. Over here on this back panel, we actually had a ton of shortness, and it's pressed firmly up against the top. There's not a whole lot of space where you can go wrong on that. So again, getting this square is important, but at the same time, you have to make sure all your panels fit in. So I wouldn't stress out super badly if you can't get the thing square. All right, guys, now moving on here to the front of the greenhouse. It's a pretty standard design, but it's a standard design that the manufacturer took and they screwed up pretty majorly. Again, we are missing the side bracing panels for these panels to be locked into place, so I'm going to have to feed something through. For these sides, or sorry, for the front here, I'm planning on putting a small strip of wood through there and then a couple of screws with some large rubber washers on it to kind of keep any moisture from getting into there. Same thing on this side over here. The door is broken up into 3 panels, and I'm 6 foot 1 inch, so I want to say this is about 5.5 foot height of a door. Door is built on a simple track system to slide open. Unfortunately though, with the pieces not fitting together 100%, we do have a lot of snagging. So I did have to come up here and I did have to grind off some of the edges on the door. And then I also had to cut some of this track here to get it to fit into place. Now I'll show you guys real up close here in just a second, but on this slider too, there were several dents in it, and that was another common factor that I experienced throughout the entire course of putting this together. We had a lot of pieces that were bent, we had a lot of pieces that were missing. So if it's something, make sure you do a complete inventory, because the pieces that we were missing, we still were able to build the greenhouse with, but if you are missing something key, you might get halfway through your project of putting this together and you might not be able to do it. Now the door though, even with all that grinding, is still extremely difficult to open up. It's a two-handed job. Once you get it open, it's difficult to slide it back closed. Opening up the greenhouse door, I did leave this in here for you guys to see. But already I've had a couple of these here pop out. It does really matter on how you get them in, and these are the braces for the window. Once they do pop out, it is a little bit more difficult to put in, especially that I put caulking in, but they do fit back in. So if you do lose them, make sure you hold on to them. When you do get the greenhouse in the mail, if you do order this, make sure you set these aside, because this is one of the very last things that you're going to do, and these are super easy to lose, and for some reason they don't give you a single extra one. In fact, I was short quite a few of them. So I'm going to set this down here to the side, and we're actually going to move into the greenhouse and take a look at it from the inside. I can already feel a lot of warmth moving off from this, so hopefully I won't need my gloves in there. Alright, so now that we're inside the greenhouse, you are going to hear a little bit of an echo. That's just because we're in a small space. And I do have to admit, for a 6 by 8 foot sized greenhouse, I cannot complain by the area that is available in here. It is just a regular rectangle layout, so not a whole lot that they could do in here. But I have seen a lot of these prefab greenhouses that won't allow you to put shelving right up against the wall for some reason. They'll leave a little divot in the inside, and this is not that case. With this design, both of the side shelves that came with it go flat up against the side, and this allows for approximately 16-inch shelf space coming off from the wall that run the entire 8 feet length of both sides of the greenhouse. Shelves here are 3 tall, so 3, 6, and 9 on one side, 3, 6, and 9 on the other side, totaling 18 shelf spaces that are 2 foot by about 16 inches wide. That's quite a bit of plant storage space in here. If you think about that in a practicality aspect, a 72 cell seed starter kit could easily fit onto each of these. So that's 3, 6, 9 plus another 9. So that's 18 of those seed cell kits that you can get going in here at once. And for the size of garden we have, that's a pretty good fit in here. Now the back wall, and I'll show you guys that here in just a second, the back wall is empty, and I will add some additional storage up against that area. In the inside though, these shelves, I do have to say, are not the best design on the face of the planet. In fact, these pop off super easily. So I did leave this job undone because I wanted to show you guys, but it does need to be zip tied down. So that will be something that I'll do here probably in spring, into winter maybe, once we get ready to use the greenhouse for our first set of plants. Looking around in here though, the greenhouse has done a fairly well job of keeping water out. That is one aspect of having a greenhouse, is you want complete control of what you're growing inside of it. So having a water leak or having big gaping holes in it where heat can escape is kind of a moot point when you have a greenhouse. Like I said, it does do a great job with water, but with all the holes in it, at this point, it's not doing as great of a job as it should be trapping heat inside of it. So I will go back through. I'm going to apply this will be our third layer of caulking, and then I do have some spray foam that I'm going to spray across a couple of spots in there just to tighten it up as much as possible. Now the frame for the door, however, when that does close, there is a small gap between there, so I would recommend that you get some weather strip sealing like you would use across the door or a window frame in your house, and to put it across there just to tighten that up a little bit more. And that is just along the sides. Now the top and the bottom, that is a very snug fit. You can see me kind of struggling to get the door open, so if that's already tight, I wouldn't worry about that area at this point. Now, some modifications that I made in the interior is, first and foremost, I did block the window off. I figure at the time that I start using the greenhouse, I will rig that so it can open back up. You guys can see I was tugging on it a little bit and it would open, but I don't see a point in having it open up really at all during the winter months. This isn't going to get used during that time, so why take a chance of having something else break? Other modifications was I did leave a small hole at the bottom where the greenhouse meets the ground. I just cut out a little section of wood, and that's to feed a hose through, and then I did the same thing on the other side to feed an outdoor extension cord through. And I'm thinking if I want to put a grow light out here, I can easily do that by feeding the cord through that hole, and I'm not worried about any heat really escaping from that area. If it does become an issue, I could use just a cinder block or a couple of bricks to kind of block that up a little bit. Other than that, the greenhouse is doing really well. As for weather, we've had some pretty extreme wind. We've had a couple of rainstorms, a thunderstorm, and we've had snow. And not a heavy amount of snow, but a decent amount of snow where this got coated in about 1/4 of an inch with high winds, and that was heavy wet snow, and it held up very well. So I was very afraid of that. I've been giving you guys some updates on that. Unfortunately though, just last week, this panel right here popped out while I was standing right next to the greenhouse, and that made me quite a bit worried. So I hurry up, I got it back in. I've been holding on to a couple of tubes of caulking just in case that happens. I got it re-caulked in there. I was a little bit apprehensive that the caulking would hold with it being so cold out. I think it was like 28 degrees out that day, but it's held up pretty fine, and it's not going anywhere at this point. So I do have a couple of spare tubes of caulking sitting inside just in case something like that happens. And if you do purchase this greenhouse or one that's similar, I strongly recommend you do the same thing. Alright guys, so now it's time to take a look at how much we have put into this greenhouse to make it a viable option here on our homestead. And like I said before, and I have my notes right here, after tax with the free delivery, the total was $398.19. We also have to factor in the foundation, or the wood that we had to put across the bottom of it. We had to caulk it. We had to get just some extra equipment for inside of it to really kind of fasten those window panels in really well. We spent probably an additional $75. So at this point, this greenhouse, all said and done, is probably floating right around the $450 range. And I have to admit to you guys, if I had to pay that amount completely out of pocket, this would be completely out of the question. I would have received this in the mail and I would have returned it without even putting it together. The panels are very flimsy. The entire greenhouse, it does shake when we get a good amount of wind out here. And I'm not talking about the base of it. This thing is, I got this in the ground. I'm talking about more the panels. There's a lot of vibration, and that's what keeps knocking a lot of the shelving off on in the interior of it. Looking at my notes here too, talking about an installation time, the directions did say that this is a 2-person job, and they are not kidding. I would recommend 3 people because you are going to need to take a break and have people rotate out. This thing was a pain in the butt to put together, and I would go out on a limb to say it was probably the most challenging thing I've ever put together in my entire life. There is about 2,000 pieces, and that's no exaggeration whatsoever. The pieces are teeny, they don't fit together real well. A lot of the bolts came stripped, a lot of the screws were missing. We had those missing interior metal strips, which I don't want people to be confused. There is a metal strip in here. That's not the one that connects the panel. That's one, it's just a bracing strip to kind of keep everything tight together on the wall side. It's not for the panel, so don't be confused by that. Also, the track system came warped and bent like none other. I had to use some vice grips. I had to use a mallet and kind of get that straightened out as much as possible. Overall, I really wish I had the option to see this greenhouse in the store, kind of in person, before I would have purchased it. But again, with that amazing rewards offer that we had, I think we got this for just under $25 delivered. That's not including the caulking and the other materials that we had to buy. So really for us, we're invested in this about $100, which for a 6-foot by 8-foot greenhouse, even if it's just an okay one, that's well worth it. If I had to put a number on this greenhouse, I would say that it's really maybe $125 tops worth of value. The caulking around the edges, yes, I could have caulked that myself and done a lot better, but you know, we have kids here in our homestead that they want to get involved and they want to do these things as well. So letting them do it was a lot of fun. You can see there's some that got on here. I'll clean that up at some point, but with it being so cold out, I'm afraid that it might get brittle around the edges, and I don't want to accidentally pop a panel out when it's this cold out, because I do fear that it might become a little bit of a challenge to glue those back in. As you guys can see, the door's still a bit of a challenge. That's one thing that I do think that if the greenhouse is going to fail, it's going to fail at the door first. And if that happens, I'm not exactly sure what I would do to resolve that. So stay tuned. If it happens, I'll keep you guys posted. If I run into any other issues, we'll keep you guys posted as well in that regard. But overall, if you can get it at a discounted price, I do strongly recommend that you get it. I'll show you guys right now the order form here through Walmart.com. Shows that the product is no longer available. It says that it's either been back ordered or is currently out of stock. I really don't think that that's the case. You know, maybe, especially that this greenhouse is kind of the common greenhouse for this area, for this budget. Like I said, it's the same exact greenhouse that sells through Harbor Freight. It's the same one through Walmart. I've seen it at a couple of different web providers, and really it all floats around to the same price. I do want to say I think Harbor Freight's was a little bit cheaper, but from my understanding, theirs didn't come with the interior shelves, which really don't add that much value to the greenhouse until, I mean, that could have been something anyone could have made out of wood fairly inexpensively. The only other design aspect that I considered changing initially was in the interior. I had thought about running some 2x4s up to kind of brace these walls in a little bit more, and I didn't have to do that. Like I said, this thing's not going anywhere unless it gets hit by something or the panels pop out. And even with the panels popping out, the structure of the actual greenhouse I don't think is going to go anywhere. Now, from my knowledge, I did do some shopping around. I went to Menards, I went to Lowe's, and I went to Home Depot to see about getting replacement panels, just to have a couple of extra ones in case something happened. And none of them carried anything similar to this in store. So that is something to consider, is if these panels do break, how to replace them. And that's something that we'll cross if it actually does happen. And I would keep you guys posted on that, because that is something that I'm concerned about. All right, so let's be completely honest. The manufacturer here, they could have done a lot of things a lot differently. Really, I think the most important thing would be picking different and more sturdy supplies and materials to build this out of. The design plan, really, looking back at it, wasn't really new, wasn't anything too abstract, and there were a couple of aspects in here where I thought, wow, that was a really good idea, the way that they did that. Unfortunately, though, with the instructions that they provided, it made it impossible to figure that out until after he had gotten this put together. Like I said, though, biggest factor is the actual structural integrity of these supplies. They should have went with a thicker metal. Now I'm leaning up against this with my full force, and it's not moving anywhere right now. And I want to say, if I had to guess, I would figure we'd probably get about 5 to 6 years out of this. If we got that out of it, I would be very happy. I've kind of driven around in our community, and I found a couple of other homeowners that have the same greenhouse. I don't know if they purchased it from Walmart or Harbor Freight or where they got it from, but I've talked to one of them. He's had his up for over 10 years and not had any issues with it. He complained about the same aspect with the door, however. And then the other one looks like it's been out there at least 5 years. I've never talked to that homeowner though. So at this point, I don't think that the price is ever going to come down on this. I only see it going up as we kind of see pressure from the market at this point, with all the shutdowns that have happened, and with, you know, supplies becoming more scarce. Other than that though, if I was going to do it again, yes, with the discount and with the promotion that I had, I would have got this again. I can't wait to use it in spring. I'm actually pretty excited about it. Even though I didn't have a lot of great things to say about it, it does do a good job as a greenhouse. Opening it up, I want to say the temperature inside was about 20 degrees warmer than what it was outside, and that was with a lot of gaping holes in it and not a lot of sunlight out here to be producing that heat. At night, the temperature in here, of course, drops just like it does outside, because without that light feeding into it, it's not going to make a huge difference. Yes, you could put a heater in here, but with the panels being so thin, and these are thin panels, I wish I could show you guys a better view of it. Just with the camera, it's too difficult. But these are very thin panels. They're not going to trap heat in it, not over the course of a night. In the summer, maybe for an hour. I can't see anything longer than an hour. But in the winter, it would definitely not be worth putting a heater in here. Other than that though, guys, that's it for this greenhouse review. If it's something that you can get used, if it's something you can get discounted, I do recommend it. I do. Just understand that it's going to take more than one person, and it's going to be a pain in the butt to get together. But once you do have it together, I do think that it is worth it. Now, I do have a further cost comparison breakdown video that'll be coming out here pretty shortly, where we're going to talk about, is it economical to purchase a greenhouse versus buying plants already started, and we're going to weigh some of the ups and downs of that. So stay tuned for that video. That should be coming out in another week or two. 2 or 3 maybe. And then other than that, if you guys have any questions or comments about this greenhouse, please let me know, because I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. If you enjoyed the video, please consider sharing, and if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. Right now we're floating at, I think, just under 300 subscribers, and we really have a goal of hitting 500 before the end of winter. So that said, comment below. My contact information is listed in the description, and other than that, stay tuned for our next video. Can't wait to see you guys then.